For joining us on Squawk, I'm Bruce Whitfield. You're watching CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. We're joined by Sasha Bieber and Narishkin from Vestact, and David Shapiro's returned after a 3-week absence from the show. What's his name again? Oh yes, the Oracle of Johannesburg. That's what we call David Shapiro. Before we came on air, Sasha Narishkin, you were doing Johan Rupert impressions. I don't know if you have the courage to do them publicly, but he was saying some really interesting stuff today, wasn't he?
And that's my most favourite part of listening to the Richmond results. We were like, get these guys out the way, let's get Johan Rupert on. And he lambasted an analyst because he kind of said, how long have you been in your job? You know, indicating that the guy's only been there for a couple of years, hopping from job to job. He said, we have been in our job for 25 years. And he's really colourful.
It's a good impression.
That is very colourful, but is he still allowed to smoke on the podium?
He stopped smoking.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. At the request of his family.
I think that's when they offloaded British American tobacco.
Exactly. You can't be the poster boy for a company you no longer seem to run through Richmond. But I mean, here's Johan Rupert doing a Quizbecker, taking a year out. He can afford to, firstly, but can Richmond afford to be without him? That's the big question, I suppose.
I guess that's always a worry. I mean, he said, oh, well, look, the share price are up a lot today. So, indicating that if the share price is up a lot.
This is the last time he's on the show. Don't get a Richmond sponsorship here.
We don't need Johan Rupert. We've got Sasha to do Johan Rupert impressions. But David, not to put too fine a point on it, I mean, you remember the days of Anton Rupert, of course. How fundamentally different is the Richmond business under the son versus the father?
Completely different. Believe me, Johan didn't get there the easy route. It's been a hard struggle there. He made a lot of mess ups along the way. Remember Canal Plus and so on. In fact, Canal Plus is not too bad today, but in its early days it wasn't that great. And even formatting Richmond wasn't that easy, but today it's a super business. Completely different business.
So this is the business
totally
with its roots in Anton, with Anton Rupert, with the cigarette business.
Right.
And he built up the brands of cigarettes, which created the capital, which enabled the acquisition of Dunhill and then the move into luxury goods.
Right. In fact, that was the route through Dunhill, which is a luxury brand. They moved into Richmond as well. And I think that it's a superior brand. Where he's gone right is he's right at the top end of the market. And luxury, we confuse it. There's a lot of mid-range like Calvin Klein and that. Those are not luxury brands. It's the desirable ones, the ones that just put you above everybody else. Like Rolls-Royce, they don't care whether you're in a recession or whether a boom. Their customers always buy, and that's where Richmond are with watches.
And they haven't cheapened their brand because he says ultimately at the end of the day their customer will always know that they're buying high-end brand luxury.
Something that was quite telling though from the presentation was he posed the rhetorical question, who knows what the average Tiffany's ticket is? In other words, the average receipt at Tiffany's. Turns to his board and nobody could pull out a number.
It's $200 or something.
It was 190.
Yeah, it's $200.
Yeah. But he knew and nobody else did.
Yeah.
And go back to the question, he can survive quite happily without Richmond. He's made enough money during his time, but can Richmond manage for a year without him? It's only a year, but still.
Well, what he talks about is the overall jewelry market. So it's 55 billion euros, and they operate in a segment that's right at the top end. 80% of the jewelry market is unbranded. So essentially what he's trying to say is all those people who are buying unbranded jewelry, what's the ultimate aspiration? To buy the branded goods. And they'll never, and that's where all the margins are, and that's where the exclusivity is.
And the sweet spot now is in emerging markets where you have the aspirant.
Although strangely, they've been opening stores in Beverly Hills, Paris, but they're exploring now Brazil, India, the Middle East.
The beauty is that, and I learned this in Omaha. There was a chap who was, you remember Tom Russo? I don't know if you know him. He's very supportive of breweries and a lot of our companies, and he made the point that the Chinese, he says that they go across to Europe and they see brands there, come back and then want those brands in their country. And that brings in further kinds of luxury brands. They see something they want everybody else sees it and also wants it, and that also creates the demand for new brands. And from the traveling Chinese.
Let me ask the question again, because neither of you wants to answer it. So, a year at Richemont without Johann Rupert. Is this perhaps a succession game that he's playing to see which cream rises to the top within the existing Richemont management as to who should take over when he retires?
I can't read that. I suppose he's been more a chairman than a CEO. And I doubt whether he'll really remove himself from the business. There'll still be a watchful eye. And I think Koos Becker was also like that. I don't believe Koos actually broke ties in that. He traveled around. You can get a chap like Brian Jovi, who might travel quite a bit, but he's still on the phone every day to his chaps, talking to them, finding out what's happening. So he doesn't manage at the desk. He's not sitting there and micromanaging, but he's still keeping a watchful eye, making the important decisions. And with Rupert's wealth, his family invest, he's not going to let that he's not going to let that give that to somebody else's decisions, or give in to someone else's decisions.
He says he wants to read 50 business books, or 50 books that he's never going to get to read unless he has the time off. So he wants to focus on a little bit of him time, and he's given up smoking, so he wants to get a little bit of health back into his system as well. So that is the big story out of Richemont today. What was the update like, incidentally? It was pretty robust,
it was
pretty
full
good.
year results, and in fact the stock spiked to an all-time high.
Yeah.
So
80 rand, over 80 rand.
At what point did they do another share split? Because they did a share split at this sort of level 10 years ago. Rupert was trading at a couple of £100 a share. They did a share split and do another.
It's $10 stock. It's
not huge.
It's not huge.
Okay, now, so we've had a look at Richemont. Good results, good update, interesting move by Johann Rupert. Nice impression. Thank you very much for that, because we invite him, but he doesn't come. So we'll get you in next time on that particular front. Tell me what's happening in the platinum sector, please. What a spectacular destruction of value, David Shapiro.
I cynically say, when finally AMCU and Casatu get the mines, or bring it to their knees and get the mines to close, they'll say, we won. We beat the capitalists. No jobs, no industry.
You need to know,
we won.
Sasha, I don't know if you know this, but David's in-laws were pretty staunch communists, so he understands the communist.
I can sing the Internationale, when my mother-in-law, she's deceased at the moment.
She's deceased at the moment.
Just in case she comes back. Just in case. She's deceased, but when she had her 80th birthday, she had a cake in the Star. Blade was there, everybody there, and they were trying to get my son to join the Communist Youth League. So I'm close to trade unionists and that, but I think they'll be very happy when the mines finally close, because that's the way it's going.
That's an overly cynical view, David. Come on,
don't kid yourself. The danger, the problem is that as we go deeper, as we start to mine deeper, costs start to increase. As costs increase, your margins reduce. Platinum price going nowhere at the moment with, the biggest offtake is Europe. Yes, there's quite a bit of offtake in China for jewelry. But the danger is that the platinum price doesn't do anything. The only help we're getting is from the rand. So you can actually kill these mines, because with less profit to reinvest and to expand, you eventually shrink to nothing.
I think that's the critical part, is where is the investment going to come to from next? And if these turf wars spill over into real gun battles between the fighting unions, that is the impression we're giving to capital.
And already Moody's was saying yesterday that, look guys, this is the sort of environment which makes us start reconsidering our ratings issues, and we're 2 grades away from Moody's junk bond status.
And the other point is, you've got the indigenization now in Zimbabwe, and they're deciding, should we pay you for the mine? It really belongs to us. Why should we pay you? And you're getting similar attitudes now, where you're soon going to have to hand over more of the mines to empowerment partners and that. So the incentive to invest is no longer there. So there are a lot of issues that are weighing on the platinum, and you can read gold as at the same thing. So big, I think a lot of discussions have to take place to decide where this is going to go. Government have to interfere, but they're not helping at the moment.
Yeah, let's talk about more cheerful.
Yeah, I think so.
Naspers.
$700 for the first time, and I think
it was too expensive at 400. It was crazy at 500. It was nuts at 600, and it looks so enticing at 700, doesn't it?
Well, if you take the 35% stake, so what were you saying? They're nearly the same size as Anglo-American. I think I heard
290 billion. And they're a little bit today. Sorry,
so they're bigger than Sasol and nearly the size of Anglos.
Yes.
Yep. So,
Yes.
but I think even if you take the 35% stake in Tencent, you get to 217 or 220 as of the close. So what you're trying to tell me, the rest of the business is basically worthless, and that's DSTV, which spits cash.
Yeah.
You know, people are currently watching on that bouquet now. And then what about all the other businesses? So some people are starting to say, well, maybe it deserves a re-rating.
But what is the rating on Tencent itself?
33.
It doesn't matter. This is a massive.
The moment
growth
somebody tells
area.
me, David, that doesn't matter, I get very
But it's growing at 40%, Bruce. So
mobile, mobile is replacing PC at
Yeah.
the moment, and we don't understand.
They've got
the
200 million
growth.
people in China sending things to each other digitally.
and that's at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they've got nearly 800 million users. That
They're the
get
provider, and that's the content will come through them to the end user. How
They
many-
Twitter, Facebook, and every other social
eBay,
media rolled
exactly.
into one in China.
Exactly.
Also in the non-English speaking world,
Yeah.
because they're doing the same in Russia, they're early stages, and they're doing the same in the Portuguese speaking world. So
I battle to understand the industry mainly because of my age, but you've got to go down to those levels, to understand the generation, the Bieber generation.
Okay, tell the Bieber generation
Yes.
points to you. We'll talk about
Bruce,
that in a
people
second.
don't watch movies on TV sets anymore. They watch it on iPads or on mobile. They watch their television on mobile. So you're getting a complete change of culture, which is, a shock to me.
Yeah, it's a shock to me. Only Bieber boy ever had.
So,
he understands it. Yeah. But at $700, is it a buy?
well, you're basically getting, most of the 10-cent business and everything else for free. So I'd say on that basis, I think the biggest risk to their business is the Chinese authorities saying, okay, everyone can console game, everyone can use Facebook. So if they liberalize, then there'll be
What are the odds?
have more competition. It'll happen, but 10, 15,
They've got
20
their universe. I think it's very hard for people to shift their universe. It's easier for people to shift from an iPhone to a Samsung than to shift from your internet user.
Is it a buy at $700?
The short answer is yes.
I like it, and I like Richemont. And as long as I've been in the stock market, I've actually been there longer than both Naspers and Richemont. Everybody said to me, too expensive, don't buy. Right. So, and every year I've heard that.
But did you own them?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, but that's why he's a genius. Two raging bulls. Not one, two raging bulls. Okay, right, on to Telkom. We need to talk to Telkom. I saw the chief executive of Telkom yesterday looking frightened, but that's not because he's appointed Miriam Altman, who's a formidable individual. If you've ever met her, she's on the National Planning Commission.
I have
She
met her
is
once, yes.
Canadian-born, straight-talking, fearsome intellect. You say, here's our new head of strategy. I like the announcement. I like the
Well,
announcement.
I think she errs on the side of David's parents-in-law,
Yeah.
more towards...
Which is, but is that not okay in an environment where the duty of a national telecommunications provider is to be quite socialist in its approach and to provide access to, which is what Telkom should have been doing 15 years ago.
Well, the way I look at it, the reason why multi-choice DSTV has done so brilliantly is because the national provider has done so poorly. In the same way that Vodacom and MTN have done superbly well, they're going backwards, Bruce. And if it wasn't for the broadband offering, which they're increasing their pricing on, they'd be going backwards at even a greater rate. And a little birdie told me that there are wage negotiations underway.
Well,
Telkom have
there's a threat
started
of a
very,
strike.
very low.
They've started at
Bruce,
0.5%.
Yeah.
It comes down what strategy.
Yeah,
Number one, get rid of half the people.
which is tough
Which
in a
is gonna
parastatal.
be
Well,
that's
you
what I'm
can't
going to
if
say.
you put
That's where you've got to
SOC
start.
at the end.
Forget about saying we're going to build a line that goes this way, we're going to go into this area. That's easy. That's the PowerPoint presentation. Get rid of half the people, improve efficiency.
Until that happens, it's not a buy.
It's not even a
No.
buy. It's not 6.5 billion.
Okay.
The network itself is worth tens of billions of rands,
Yeah.
but maybe they're not maintaining it properly. Old
Well,
equipment.
it's worth nothing if nobody's prepared to use it and
Yeah.
if people are abandoning their home phones. I still, to my dismay, have a home telephone.
But do you use it for ADSL or for phoning?
I don't use it.
Yeah.
It's there. It exists.
Costing you 140 rand a month.
No, it's about $180.
Okay, so you are using it a little.
Well, no, that's just for the rental. And then somebody else
Rich
uses it.
area, probably.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. That's why we pay more.